Well, a very good morning and nice to have you with us in this edition of the topical discussion. The focus certainly continues on the Chitezi devastating landfill slide, where a heap of garbage over the weekend on Saturday came crashing, submerging quite a number of homes. The death toll continues to be rising on a daily as rescuers continue with efforts to retrieve bodies. Quite a number of desperate residents in the area are now sleeping in makeshift tents. Well, the situation is really dire, but we continue to follow the story, and this morning our own Victoria Bagaya is catching up with the spokesperson of Uganda Red Cross to share with us the latest on the magnitude of devastation, destruction, and of course to tell us about how the rescue efforts are proceeding. Vicky, I was at that very spot yesterday. It was quite disheartening. What's the latest?
Well, I can assure you, Simon, I feel that same way. And very many thoughts going through my mind, but the situation is indeed dire. As of yesterday, we're looking at a total number of deaths coming to 21. But of course, from what we hear, the Red Cross did say that they're most likely suspecting that there could be over 100 people who are still under the rubble. But where I am standing by is a makeshift structure that they've set up. From what I think, of course, we did first go to where the catastrophe happened, and we saw quite a number of people carrying out some of their belongings and mattresses and a few things they could actually be able to. Not sure where they're headed, so that's why we want to ascertain who exactly is here, who is supposed to be here. But from the site or the other side of the landfill to where these makeshift structures are, I do see a lot of security presence to ensure that those who are gathered here have their security intact, but also as they continue to wait to get more news. I'll speak to the Red Cross, Irene Nakasita, who is in charge of communications. A very good morning to Irene. We want to know how many people do you have here? What's this place who's supposed to be here? What exactly has transpired since yesterday until now?
Actually, since Saturday, because yesterday is just okay. Thank you for having me, and a good morning to the viewers. First of all, the people in here are those who lost everything, all their belongings. Then there are those who voluntarily offered their houses to be demolished to allow access to the venue, to the very place that needed to be excavated. And also there are those who are waiting for their bodies. So last night, 67 adults slept in here, of course, without counting children. But then in the morning, some have moved down there because everyone who hasn't received their dead are waiting. So they have to go to where the excavation takes place and wait, because there's also identification of their own, so they can't be here when the excavation is happening. But at least we know that they come back here together, check on the children, prepare meals. Like right now, the ladies are going to start peeling that matoke that we got yesterday so that they prepare a breakfast for the children ahead of anything else that they are yet to do.
Are we taking records? Do we know who is here? How is the security?
Yes, we are taking records because it's mandatory. Whoever comes in here has to be registered. But also remember, the Prime Minister said even yesterday that they need to account for the people who they are keeping here. So we've been registering from Saturday. And then the records, of course, keep changing because today you can have a bigger number, then some days you get a smaller number, but we are keeping the records for everyone.
As the Red Cross, has there been any other organization that has been working with the government was here, but I don't see government this morning, where MENAS Security, which is also government, are you working, collaborating with anyone to make sure that the work and this voluntary work and, this help, this support is going on?
We are working closely with the Office of the Prime Minister. Because even yesterday, the team that was here, so we gave out food that was delivered by the Office of the Prime Minister. but also we gave out some non-food relief items to the people. These authorities have been around to identify with these people, console them, speak to them, reassure them, and of course encourage them. So the authorities are here. KCCA is committed to supporting the wash aspects. So the mobile toilets here, the water there was delivered by the KCCA. Ministry of Works is also on ground, all those excavators. The General Katumba Amala is the one who chaired the meeting we had on Sunday. His team is also, they are all supporting. So there are different dockets being managed by different entities and ministries. People may not be here right now, but behind the scenes a lot is happening because we have a coordination meeting that takes place at 10 o'clock and all those departments and ministries are represented. So the Red Cross and the Office of the Prime Minister, by the very nature of what we do, that's why we are the ones here. But of course, you may not see an OPM person, but the Red Cross being here, OPM is also represented.
Well, thank you so much. Irene, I'm going to put a pause on our conversation, and I want to come very close here. Simon, now, the reason that's why I say it's quite disturbing, Simon, is because we have a whole ministry. And, you know, it rained. I wanted to look at the ground. Let's start right here. I even had to wear my gumboots so that we can be able to access this place with much ease. As you can see, we are indeed in the rainy season. So this makeshift structure, which of course is makeshift because it is really what they can afford right now. But then I do think maybe as government we need to think better. We need to think about some of these things quite critically and also put a little bit of effort into it. These people are sleeping on this, they're sleeping on these tarpaulins. But then we're having children, we're having mothers, we're having kids sleeping in this place. We have a whole ministry, we have different ministers, you know, we have a whole office of the Prime Minister, disaster and preparedness. Is this really what we can afford to give the people? Can't we afford to give them, you know, at least somewhere where they can feel comfortable and at least even within the grief be able to do something? I want to count from Saturday morning when this incident happened. Saturday, Sunday, we're talking about Tuesday, those are 4 days. And of course, they're doing whatever they can, but can't we do more? Can't we prepare better for some of the things? We have a budget. Can't we plan for this country? Can't we plan for some of these things? To be honest, I'm quite frustrated if it were me, and I do understand they have to go the other side and come back this side, but can't we do more beyond just food? Beyond providing, you know, toilets and water? Can't we be able to do more? You know, what happened to the blankets? What happened to the mattresses? I don't think, honestly speaking, I think instead of just turning into this thing of politicking and having the Prime Minister and having having ministers and political leaders, really, I just think we need to really just be more humane and think about what more we can do as a government, especially in disasters like this, in terms of preparing better, but also because we have no much effort, we have no much power over what can happen, but at least we can do better in terms of preparing and also coming to support who are in dire states. So I can assure you, well, I can't say much. I'm not government, but what I can see as a human being, really, Simon, I think we just need to be doing better. But of course, we do condole with those who have lost their loved ones. We do hope that more support and those who can be able, especially the security officials who are doing the excavation, can be able to come to their rescue and also be able to, you know, compensate them and find them where they can actually be able to stay. As you heard, the Red Cross says some of them actually voluntarily offered some of their houses so that they can be able to create way, so they can also be able to do the excavation and retrieve some of these bodies and give them a decent burial. But honestly speaking, I think we need to put government on the spot to really do more, especially because we know these things are going to happen. That's why we have a whole ministry of disaster and preparedness. We just need to plan better so that we can give Ugandans at least the support they need in situations like this. Back to you, Simon. I don't know if you think like me at the Political Command Center.
We'll get back. Well, sad, very sad, and quite a deplorable condition at Chitezi. We want to thank all the rescue workers. They are quite selfless. I was on the ground yesterday. Even in the midst of a heavy downpour, operations were still going on, rummaging through rubble, imagine, of garbage, and withstanding that very, very offensive stench in the area. But well, as we connect dots on this tragic story, we want to bring you the Lord Mayor of Kampala, capital city. Quite a lot of blame is being heaped on KCCA, probably even when it comes to the question of culpability, since it is KCCA that owns the land and KCCA that turned this place into a landfill. It's been on for more than 20 years, but, well, did you ignore the warning signs? Good morning, Lord.
Good morning, my brother. Good morning, viewers. There are warning signs.
Yes.
You're talking to me as an individual, or the institution of KCCA,
The institution of KCCA.
or the whole structure of government. I think you should start with the whole structure of government before you come to KCCA. Why? Government, under the Constitution, Article 5, took over administration and governance of Kampala. For us as KCCA, we are an agency of the central government. That should be understood from the word go, from inception, that we are an agency of KCCA. Much as myself and the councillors are together with the mayors of the division urban councils, we are directly elected, the law provides that we are under the central government. We are in an agency that we have actually delegated powers.
But again, don't we lose the debate when we focus more on blaming, shifting blame, who did this and who did this? Isn't this the time as a country to first work on resolving the crisis before we focus on what happened?
You have to assess the genesis of the crisis before you address your mind to the solution. It's imperative. Otherwise, you lose direction. Secondly, you are taking a risk of the very individuals who caused the mess to purport to be the messiahs when they are posturing. So you need to first and foremost deal with that. Secondly,
So who is posturing over this
no,
catastrophe?
before I come to posturing, you have again to look at the culpability of individuals. Because as I've said, I am on record saying, this is not a natural, whatever occurrence, a natural disaster. It's not a natural disaster. No, it's a man-made disaster. So if it's a man-made disaster, it's different from a natural disaster, because with a natural disaster, it's an act of God. But this is an act of man. Now, who is that man who is responsible for this mess?
That man is KCCA.
That man can be KCCA, that man can be the parent institution, that is the entire government structure. And that's where we start from. And individually, by the way, even before you talk about KCCA as an institution, because there we are collectively accused, it's a blanket indictment, you need to apportion the blame to the particular individuals. I think we need to go to the basics. For me, where I put the first indictment to the government of Uganda, it's a national obligation for us to have a landfill, a functional landfill. To date, since independence, we have not had one. We do not have a functional landfill, and we have not had one. Where do you place that blame? The people who have been in power for the last 40 years. This has not been a priority. Never mind the fact that we have brought all these matters to their attention.
Yeah, but there is a budgetary allocation towards Kampala Capital City Authority.
No, not to
manage waste.
No.
And there is also a grant, if I can remember, World Bank took interest in waste management in the city.
First of all, if you are talking about budget line, you are misdirecting yourself to the real issues. Sanitation generally is nowhere in the priorities of this government. It's not there. It has never been their priority. It's the reason you see even the street sweepers, the casual workers have to go into protest. They have to go on industrial strike, picketing to be paid their monthly dues. And that matter had to go to Parliament. Even the Prime Minister herself, yesterday we were in a meeting and I reminded her that for how long are you going to micromanage matters of KCCA? When the casual workers go on strike, you come in. When they are not paid, you also here. Now there is a garbage slide, you are here. It's high time they accepted to make a KCCA functional. That's the bottom line. Today, KCCA as an institution, and I've said this time and again, KCCA is not a functional institution. And therefore, the resultant effect is you do not have a functional city.
So this
That
is
goes without saying.
This is a result of the dysfunction.
The dysfunctionality of the city, of the institution, is reflected in the dysfunctionality of the city and the consequences we are
To
dealing
my
with.
dismay, yesterday I got a brief report. It's called ASIA.
Asia, yes.
ASIA that detailed and showed warning signs that if this landfill is not closed immediately, there will be an imminent danger of this nature.
For your information,
Did you frown at this report?
I will come to the actions we took in the wake of that report. But to begin with, where did it start from? It was the institution of KCCA, steered by myself, that commissioned that study, the ASIA study, Environmental Impact Assessment Report. We gave instructions to Messrs. Queensland and Leeds to conduct a study to guide us on how we decommission Chitezi. After realizing that actually we were behind schedule, it had outlived its lifespan. For starters, and for you Ugandans who have not gotten this information, this facility started way back in 1996 in a very humble way as just a small dumping site. And in 2021, no, rather, in 2001, 5 years later, it was upgraded to an engineered facility with some little improvement where a leachate treatment plant was installed, a weighbridge was put there, and some minimum facilities you would find at a landfill. That was an attempt at having a national landfill, but it was still on the journey of becoming a landfill, and that never materialized. So in 2015, it expired, it lapsed, and we had to replace it with we had to decommission it. It was in realization of that fact in 2016 that we went and bought 136 acres in Dundu, Mukono, for purposes of creating a state-of-the-art recycling plant there. Not a dump site, not just a mere small landfill, but a recycling plant, state-of-the-art. I'll come to that, what happened to those plans. Now coming back to Asia, we started now on the process of decommissioning Chitezi way back in 2016, but at the same time procuring a new facility, a new site where we would install that facility. So when Asia came out, it was so revealing, that report you are talking about. So interesting. For the record, I have here a copy, but it was quite instructive. And since that time, we put to task management of KCCA that please, this is a wake-up call. Oftentimes when disasters happen like this, we tend to call it a wake-up call, a wake-up call. But the first wake-up call was in 2001. 2021.
Based on a report that was commissioned by the mayor.
2021, based on the report commissioned, the study commissioned, not Lord Mayor as an individual. It was at my instance, because all programs initiate from the office of the Lord Mayor. Ordinarily, that's what it should be. Sometimes they bypass and circumvent that. But this is a resolution we took and said we must decommission Chitezi, but we did not have sufficient information on how we had to deal with it. It's the reason we enlisted the services of consultants, the engineers, and they gave, I must commend them. They did a thorough study and put us on notice, on a red alert. They put us on a red alert that for us to stave off Chitezi, we had to fast track, to stave off calamity, we had to fast track the process of decommissioning Chitezi. And many suggestions were made. But the key highlight of that report was that, look, you need to generate methane gas out of that. Methane gas. It's after this.
After closure?
No, it's part of the closure. Because with the closure, you get an embankment, kind of a retaining wall. You do what they call a capping, so that you stop water percolating into those mountains of garbage, to stop production of leachate, because that is the first thing you have to do, to stop the production of leachate, that noxious water, which goes through the garbage and it is drained away into the water bodies.
Right.
They advised us to stop that immediately by putting that cap there. And after putting that cap or that embankment, then you go into drilling. You get that gas out of that by using a process which they said is called anaerobic digestion. Anaerobic digestion. There is a way they do it without use of oxygen or oxidization. You get what we call methane gas from those heaps of garbage. The question was, how do we implement this? We asked management, what do we need to do? They said, let's go and carry out a study of how much it would cost.
Right.
The report that was presented to me, they indicated we need 26 billion Uganda shillings to finance the decommissioning process. 26 billion. And we do not have a vote, I've told you, for sanitation. That's why it makes sense. We do not have a vote, a serious vote for sanitation. Yes, there is 15 billion to pay casual workers. And there is also 4.1 billion for management of Chiteza. I will come to the accountability of the 4.1 billion. But what can 4.1 billion do when they are telling you it requires 26 billion? And I'm not an expert in that area. So we opted to go for a PPP arrangement. That's how we enlisted. We brought on board some experts from Korea. We asked them to come, how they can invest in this, generate electricity, and we get money. This again opened a can of worms, because initially we had put on table, we had gotten several proposals on how we can generate electricity out of this, not only methane, but even some other biogas and whatnot. They had indicated to us, apart from this methane gas, but the electricity that would be generated from here would be enough to light up our city. Enough.
From garbage?
From garbage would be enough to light up the city. The city would be lit with our own gas. Let me tell you this. When you go to Wankoko here, the sewage treatment center for National Water and Sewage Corporation, the electricity they use is generated from the sewer, the sewage that is there. That the effluent we get from Kampala is what they use to generate electricity. And this is the same thing we would also adopt. They have their own their plant there, electricity generated. But what stopped this process, or what thwarted all our arrangement and efforts up to this particular moment of a disaster, is Museveni's unconscionable policy of saying there is a cap on all the electricity that goes onto the national grid. He capped it and said it can't go beyond the 5 cents. We have moved to several offices, Electricity Regulatory Authority, Uganda Electricity Distribution Company, several other agencies within that chain of distribution of electricity in the government in Uganda, but to a note. In vain. It's very, very frustrating, I'm telling you. Mr. Museveni could not move an inch. He even reiterated it recently when he was in Western Nile for the extension of that power line and said it can't go beyond 5. But surprisingly, he applied it selectively. He invoked his prerogative to revisit that policy in favor of particular individuals like Skaul, let me complete it, and Lugazi, whose electricity generated from sugarcane goes onto the national grid at 8 cents. And for us, initially they were asking for 11, 10, and we had convinced them to accept 8. Mr. Museveni refused, could not budge to relax this. Karuma, Isimba, theirs goes onto the national grid, at least for the first 15 years, at 18 cents. Why 5 cents for KCCA? Yet we would utilize this garbage. That, as I said, we would get ripple effect out of this project, getting rid of garbage and at the same time also generating electricity.
I think the view out there would be saying, well, the Lord Mayor has the background to the whole story. But no remorse has been heard or seen from KCCA. Are you acting indifferent?
Good. In all the meetings we have had, I have asked that institutionally, first and foremost, government should own up. We expected an apology from General Museveni. Number one, an apology to Ugandans for presiding over this mess for the last 37 years that we do not have a landfill here. And this was a catastrophe where we put a warning sign, a red alert, a red flag, and it was never listened to, never heeded to. Even in this report, it was never implemented. And notwithstanding the fact that we brought it to the attention of the central government. But what came out of him? Just lambasting everybody, particularly those poor people. The victims, can you imagine how insensitive one can be? You blast the victims that they should be investigated, how they came to settle in that area, who allowed them to settle there, and that is the instruction, the directive given to the deputy IGG to investigate. Not the individuals in the KCC are responsible. This is what I raised with the Prime Minister yesterday. And she assured us that within a week, they are going to take a decision. That
so is that
cabinet,
institutional or individual culpability that we should be discussing?
there is institutional and individual culpability. Institutional government should own up. KCCA should also own up, and I'm part of KCCA because that is our facility. We are all responsible, institutionally and collectively responsible, but there is individual liability, culpability, criminal negligence, recklessness, indolence, which must attract penalties, sanctions. And this is the point I raised with the Right Honorable Prime Minister when we were at a meeting in Chitezi. And she said they are taking it to cabinet on Monday. For us, we are waiting for
as a sign of remorse, at least on the part of government, they have given 5 million to the bereaved families. Do you think that that is an act of kindness?
Can you imagine? Isn't that being a sadist? No, not a sadist as such, but a mockery to the bereaved families. Isn't it a mockery? That tokenism. We should be talking about compensation. People have lost their lives. These people's blood should not be spilled in vain. It shouldn't go in vain. Their blood shouldn't go in vain. Mr. Museveni should be talking about compensation of these people's structures. Should be talking about compensation for the people who have lost their loved ones. Should be talking about a settlement plan for the homeless people. For heaven's sake, there is a 10-year boy who lost all the family members. They had been sent to a shop to buy some things for the family, only to return when the home is gone and all the family members. And so many. I have a relative, Mr. Kawuchi Robert, who lost a whole structure, a storage structure, with his wife, Brenda, and many others. So many people. There is this lady who has a very harrowing story, who was evicted from a wetland. She had just settled there. Now everything is gone. So Mr. Museveni should be empathetic, should have empathy. I want to push him to have it, to find it within his heart, to say, Mia Krupa, I'm sorry. I want Museveni to have it within his heart, and then make a serious commitment, instead of speaking tough against the victims, to say, we are going to compensate you. I've instructed the Attorney General, if I were the one in the State House, I've instructed the Attorney General to link up with the government valuer, they assess the extent of the damage and the individual victims and their families, and assess the amount of compensation. That's what you should be doing now.
But to show the magnitude of response, a responsible response. Government is instituting a commission of inquiry led by the IGG. Would you be keen to reveal a number of things, and what would be the key highlights that you feel ought to be exposed?
What should be in the spotlight? Not the way people came to settle there, because that seems to be the line of investigation for General Kaguta Museveni. Specific attention should be made on who is responsible for this mess, the individual culpability.
Individually, who is responsible?
Individually, who is responsible? You ask yourself, one, who was manning it physically? Because my duty as the Lord Mayor, I play oversight. Mine is policy making and oversight. I don't directly deal with the management of Chitezi. But there is 4.1 billion which has been appropriated every financial year, and it has not been accounted for. January this year, we put our foot on the ground and said this money should not be spent there again. We must, and we passed a resolution in the State Executive Committee. I have minutes to that effect. 4.1 billion
for Chitezi.
For Chitezi, maintenance of Chitezi. And maintenance entailed leveling or flattening at all times the garbage there, not to create mountains in that place. So The heaps of mountains have been building up gradually, and somebody somewhere is responsible. Who has been taking the 4.1 billion Uganda shillings?
Who is that?
Who is that? The person who has been dealing with those transactions. I don't want to prejudice.
Whose office is it?
Exactly. Whose office is it? Whose office is directly responsible for that particular facility? Because there is a...
Whose office is it?
Let me tell you.
Okay, which office? Which particular
First of all, the first and immediate person responsible is our director in charge of public health. The director in charge. That one, if others can be investigated, that one ought to have resigned that very day. He's called Daniel Okero, the director. We have had issues before. Actually, many queries have been raised. He's a dentist. He's qualified as a dentist. And many have had issues with that. And said, public health requires somebody with expertise in managing that particular sector. For him, it was learning on the job. And we have had issues with that directorate to begin with. Even mismanagement of the casuals, the fights we have had. You are bringing on board 7 Hills. You are creating that rift between 7 Hills and the community circles. People's monies are not paid, and so on and so forth. I even personally, as the head of SEC, presented to council during the COVID period. We sat as an executive and recommended to council. They passed a resolution to sack him. To begin with. But he was spared by council. Council never passed the resolution. So that is you have pushed me to reveal some of those issues. The rest at a higher level, they can also be investigated. Because it's a chain. Even at a lower level, those he has been supervising. For your information, there is an engineer, there is a site engineer who is supposed to be there 24/7. He abandoned that facility a long time ago, but he's still drawing salaries and emoluments. A site engineer. When we reached there in January, they told us he left here his brother. Can you imagine how one can abuse that office to that extent? That I'm the Lord Mayor, I get my office, the seat of the Lord Mayor, with all the responsibilities and duties, obligations, I hand that to my brother. Can you imagine?
So, Lord
and Mayor, that person is there still getting salaries?
Lord Mayor, this is what I pick.
4.1, yes.
The Director of Public Health and Environment is the one responsible.
Not singly. Is directly responsible for management of Chitezi. Can you imagine if when we visited...
And when it comes to individual liability,
I was starting with him. He's not alone. Don't misquote me. Yes, he's not alone. Because it's a chain. I've told you, in January when we went to visit, it was 7th, ahead of the council sitting on 9th. No, second sitting. We're going to have a second sitting on 9th, but before that we said, let's first have a visit. Can you imagine all the technical people shunned our field visit? All of them. Because it was supposed to be a guided tour, a visit. Because they feared the shame there. They have been spending 50 million, for example, on management of the leachate treatment plant. But that leachate treatment plant has been desolate. It has been dead for the last 10 years. For the last 10 years, it has been dead. It was just a huge abandoned lagoon with leachate there stinking, causing a health hazard to the environment, to the communities there. And the people within the vicinity have always been complaining. And they have been, every year they have been spending 50 million, at least on paper. 50 million. Who can account for that? I'm glad the Genome 7 ordered that they are getting a satellite or aerial view prior to the incident. It will reveal all this. You will be shocked to see what was at Chitezi before the incident.
Let's take a very short break, and when we return, it's very intriguing to hear some of the stories that have been emerging, or some of the signals that were ignored before this tragedy hit. We'll hear more after the break. Good morning. Welcome back. We're still counting the cost of the deadly and catastrophic landslide that happened at Chitezi over the weekend. The number of dead, the death toll continues. There are quite a number of desperate relatives who are pitching camp in the temporary housing provided by the Uganda Red Cross. But maybe grammatically, there are two conflicting words: a dump site and a landfill. Was Chitezi a landfill or a dump site?
1996, when it started, I said it was a dump site. 2001, steps were taken to develop it into a landfill, and the processes did not come to fruition. It got destroyed along the way and it never reached that stage of a landfill.
What is a dump site and what is a landfill?
A dump site is just an open ground where you just deposit garbage with some limited or minimum management. But with a landfill, it's not about dumping there. There must be facilities to have that garbage dumped there, deposited there, to be managed properly in a scientific manner. These are the features you'll find at a landfill, which you'll not find at a dump site. A leachate treatment plant, for example. We had constructed one at Chitezi, which became moribund, to treat the leachate that gets out of the garbage. 2, there must be an industrial incinerator to eat up the garbage, the kind you'd find in hospitals. Because we have said, like a medical waste, you can't take it to Chitezi. It is incinerated at source. Many hospitals should be having one. So we should also be having an industrial incinerator. There's a certain type of garbage which you can incinerate from there. Then you must have what they call anaerobic or biodigester. That one is to get compost manure, to get manure out of the garbage. Because the way it is there, you cannot use it as manure. No. Like I've explained, the sewage we get from Kampala, which at least connected on the national sewer line and ends up in Wankoko, it is treated, processed, and if you're a farmer, I'm sure you must have bought some of the manure from there, from human waste. That is the kind of treatment plant we would establish at Chitezi in any given landfill.
So you've been allocating money to a non-existent landfill?
It was about, not me personally or the institution of KCCA. This money has always been allocated by the central government and with no room for flexibility. It is tied to a particular project. It comes up. Previously, it was 3 billion for management of Chitezi. And the KCCA had procured the services of Otada. You know Otada, who had the buses. And he was a member of parliament. He was the one managing it. He had gotten a contract. And we chased him away. And KCCA said, we are going to manage it ourselves. When we decided to manage it ourselves, we moved from frying pan to fire. Because at least Otada had some of the equipments, but for us, we didn't have one. And up till this particular moment, we have not got one. And these people have been just hiring. Like Lumala of Nippons has been renting us his grader, bulldozer, at a sum of 2.6 million per day for grading and leveling the garbage. And it has been it has been obsolete. And I've said that grader stationed there 24/7, it had become garbage itself. If you can put it in spotlight and get the pictures of that, terrible. When we visited in January, we said, but what is this thing doing here? Then they said, no, Lumala promised he's procuring one, it is still in the bond, is clearing it. Up to now, Mr. Lumala has not brought it on site. But 2.5 million is spent a day. There are other 3 graders, each of them, 2.6 rather. The other 3 graders, one paid for 2.6 and another one, no, excavators, 2.5, 2.6, 2.5 per day. Goodness. 2.5. And for the leachate treatment plant, rather, 50 million. And they would get maram. You see, to grade the garbage, to compact it there, to grade it and level it, for how those mountains are built up, one who needs to understand. When you get a layer of garbage deposited there, this grader would not straight away compress it. No. You'd have to scoop marram from somewhere, excavate it, pour it here, and then you grade. Then you get another heap of tons and tons of garbage. Then you put marram. So that marram, they put it at 1.5 billion. The marram, we used 2023, 2024. So every financial year, there's been 1.5 billion for marram alone. We discovered something shocking. When we visited in January, and this is what incensed me, particularly, I went livid, I must tell you. We discovered from the locals there, who scavenge, I'm sorry to use that language on the garbage there, they are just scavenging on it. They told us that actually this is soil you see. It's not marram, but this porous soil. It was being scooped from the 4-acre extension we had bought to add on the 36 acres, which were full. And this is the soil they were selling to us at 1.5 billion. This is why I said they are individuals who are culpable, individually. And actually, they should be behind bars now. Over 20 lives lost. People are homeless. They are just in tents they are provided by Red Cross. And somebody is sleeping home with his wife and family. How can this country be unfair? Some people should be behind bars. They should be prosecuted. And we are here facing the wrath, the barrage of attack. We are in the firing line. We are even on the front line struggling to get solutions. The Yangas. And they have always been stubborn. They don't see any value in elected leaders.
Lord Mayor, we're talking the aftermath, and there's been compensation and rescue efforts. Is KCCA playing any role, or you're simply taking a back seat?
KCCA's role in excavation is, for all intents and purposes, insignificant. Because we don't have even a single grader.
Seriously?
Yes. Initially on Saturday, there were only 4. But all those ones, we had sourced them out. We don't have any. We don't have an excavator. So eventually, they added 2 more. After Lydia Naba, the Honorable for the disaster, made some calls around. Yesterday, we learned from the Prime Minister that she's the one who delegated her. Then they added 2. By yesterday, we had added only 1. So in the excavation process, if we had a rapid response team to deal with this disaster, because we profiled the city, the disasters we are prone to. And I remember discussing this with them in 2019 when we came up with our disaster preparedness policy, when we were profiling the risks, fires, floods, and whatnot. I said we should also add waste slide. People took it as a joke. I said we should add. We are prone to waste slide. As early as 2019, we are prone to waste slide. And I didn't have in mind only Chitez, but even these garbage heaps which are piling up within the communities. Because on a daily basis, as a city, we generate 2,500 tons of garbage. That is the statistics we have. But what is collected and ferried to Chitez is just 1,500 tons. Meaning 1,000 tons remain uncollected and they are piling up, creating in other mountains within various localities. If your cameras could reach Kasamvu in Bwais, I think, in Machindi. Kasamvu is in Kanyogoga there, after Namuongo. You will be, I don't know even the feeling you'll be having, but it will be a shock to you. So this is the challenge we are feeling.
Okay, as we speak, you've put a halt on further disposal of garbage.
As from Saturday.
Nkumba has rejected your plans to start depositing that side. Chengera has also objected to your request.
Actually,
so is Kampala choking?
When we had an emergency meeting on Saturday with the Honorable Lydia Naba on site there, with the KCCA team, we had generated the consensus that we take it to Dundu, our 135 acres in Dundu. When I visited on Sunday, I found the leadership of that area and the entire community, they were opposed to this. And I agreed with their, actually sympathized with their concerns, and I said, no, I don't think we need to destroy this serene environment here. And if you found there are rocky mountains and the undulating land there, it looks quite awesome. It's a serene environment. We said no. Then the other option was in Kumba in Katabi sub-county. Mayor Basamule Kere have said in Uganda nti naye yatusammuza Lutinga Kere. He's chased away KCCA. Fine, I also sympathize with him and I appreciate his concern because they have only 14 acres and it's almost full. When I talked to Walukaga, he said, there is nothing. It's just a small private facility.
I thought this is your land.
No, it's private land. They don't have one. But when we were in the meeting yesterday with the Honorable Prime Minister Nabanj at Chitezi, the Speaker of Wachiso Najja brought a proposal that Chira municipality had bought their 12 acres in Menvu, Busukuma sub-county, and also Nansana had also procured 20 acres for purposes of establishing a landfill for Nansana and Chira respectively. So it's within the same locality, an enclosure, same one adjacent to the other. So in total we have 32 acres. So they offered that. Of course there is some backlash coming up. Some councillors from Chira, they are saying, how could this happen without any sitting, without any meeting? I talked to the mayor yesterday, the mayor who had just returned from abroad, my brother Julius Mutebi. He is very understanding. He's going to have a sitting with his councillors today, and we have made a humble appeal to them. This is a crisis, a tragedy.
Are you relocating permanently or
not
temporarily?
Permanently, no. Because this was a wake-up call to those who were
But yesterday I found
those who were
trucks
still
going
sleeping.
to Chitezi.
Chitezi?
Yes.
That cannot happen.
When I was returning.
At least Katabi. Chitezi.
Yesterday I found 2 trucks on their way to
Engineer
Chitezi.
Ruimbas, the deputy ED was insisting that we should continue with the Chitezi. I told him, I will strangle you. Yes, I told him in his face. He's my brother, belongs to Ndechima Kiran. And I told him, I will strangle you if you insist on doing this. We have always put on table proposals. You people, you have frowned upon all the programs we have come up with. It's not time now for you to stand in our way when we are looking for a solution. Never to deposit garbage again in Chitezi.
Well, Lord Mayor, as we sign out, Chitezi is just a microcosm of a big problem in Kampala, of the dysfunction of Kampala.
The dysfunctionality of the entire country and the entire state structure, because we do not have even a single landfill in the country. Recently, some mayors and the technical people were coming from the newly created cities to benchmark Chitezi. And I asked these people, Jinja, Masaka, wherever, those new cities, are you going to create a Chitezi within your areas of jurisdiction? A Chitezi. Is this the best model you can benchmark? Oh my God. So it's a disaster. And it's the reason we are appealing to General Kaguta Museveni to be flexible and reflect on this matter. Revisit the policy of 5 cents for generation of electricity.
Okay, we're getting out of here. Who do you want behind bars immediately?
Simon, I have told you. Let the IGG come to KCCA. Madam Deputy IGG, you are instructed to investigate. I will be at KCCA waiting for you. I will give you the list of those who should be behind the bars with the evidence, with the clear evidence that so and so should be behind the bars, should be held accountable and culpable for this criminality committed against the people.
That brings us to the end. The big question remains for our discussion: what kind of discussion should the country hold in the aftermath of the catastrophic landslide that happened at Chitezi over the weekend? Get to us on our socials and let's share with you your opinion. We value every opinion that counts, that comes. Have a lovely day and cheers.